After witnessing a gruesome act, a pop singer suffers from increasingly horrifying hallucinations. While dealing with the immense pressure of an upcoming tour, the woman must face her past in order to defeat a seemingly insurmountable foe. 6 days after watching his ex-girlfriend Rose Cotter take her own life, police officer Joel sits in his vehicle as he stares off into the distance. Moments later, a car pulls into the driveway across the street, so the man hides his face under a ski mask and exits the vehicle. As he walks toward the unsuspecting driver, he hallucinates a person burning alive a few feet away, implying that the dark entity that tormented Rose was passed on to him after he saw her die. While pointing a gun, Joel approaches the driver, Alexei, and takes his weapon. Before they enter the house, the cop threatens to shoot the man if he tries to alert his brother. Inside, Alexei's brother and fellow criminal, Yev, moves to grab his pistol after seeing the masked man, but the police officer orders him not to. The hoodlum thinks the intruder doesn't know who he and his brother are, but the cop says they shot a mother and her child earlier this year. Aware that the only way to transfer the curse is by either taking his own life or killing someone in front of a witness, Joel takes out a switchblade and brutally stabs and slices Alexei. However, in the ensuing shootout, Yev perishes, and the police officer realizes all his effort went to waste. Suddenly, he hears a noise from across the room and sees the frightened Louis standing against the wall. The cop asks who he is, so the man explains that he was only in the criminal's hideout to purchase illicit substances. Then, Joel realizes that he accidentally passed the curse on to the innocent witness. Seconds later, Yev's crew arrives at the house, so the police officer searches for a way to escape. In a room, he kicks an air conditioner and rolls out of the window. One thug shoots at the cop as he runs through the snowy yard, but he misses. However, as Joel crosses the road, a speeding pickup truck runs him over, ending his life. Days later in New York City, pop superstar Skye Riley appears on a talk show for her first public interview since surviving a car crash that killed her boyfriend Paul Hudson 1 year ago. The host compliments the singer's short hairstyle, and she says she's trying something new. Then, the guest opens up about how she had to cut the tour short a year ago because she chose to deal with the stress by abusing alcohol and illicit substances. Skye takes the opportunity to apologize to her fans, family, friends, and team for letting them down and promises that it'll never happen again. When the host asks how she's been since getting out of the hospital, the singer remembers pulling out a chunk of her hair, revealing that she secretly suffers from trichotillomania, a psychological condition where a person compulsively pulls out their hair. The woman says she spent the time away from the spotlight relearning how to live her life sober, and she's grateful for the chance to redeem herself. Outside the building, the pop star signs autographs and takes pictures with her adoring fans. In the car, Skye's mother and manager Elizabeth commends her on a job well done, and her assistant Joshua says the interview has gone viral. During dance rehearsal for the comeback tour that starts next week, the singer winces in pain and grabs her neck. Anton, the choreographer, stops the music and asks if she's alright, so the woman assures her that she's okay and just missed a step in the routine. In the dressing room, Skye ices her back and stares at the long scar on her stomach. By the sink, she contemplates taking a strong painkiller to ease the discomfort, but when someone suddenly knocks on the door, she accidentally drops the tablets down the drain. On the car ride back to her apartment, the singer texts a contact listed as L if she can come by his place. After Elizabeth and Joshua drop her off, the woman waits for the vehicle to depart before hailing a cab. Later, the distraught Louis pulls the pop star into his apartment and places a sword against her throat because he doesn't understand why she'd suddenly show up. She explains that he told her to come over, but the man doesn't remember sending the text message. Finally, he tosses the blade and shares that he's been dealing with unexplainable, terrifying experiences all week. Confused by Louis's odd behavior, Skye waits in the living room as he retrieves the painkiller she ordered. While sitting on the couch, a news report on the TV recounts how the singer and her late boyfriend, Paul, were seemingly intoxicated at a party just before their vehicle crashed into a ravine. Suddenly, the frantic Louis runs out of the bedroom and stares at something towering over the pop star which only he can see. He begins to choke, and the woman fears he might have taken too many illicit substances. Seconds later, the man stops moving and appears lifeless, but then he looks at the singer and smiles creepily. As Skye watches in horror, Louis grabs a weight plate from the floor and bashes his face with it several times until he perishes. Still in shock, the pop star throws up, and as she's about to call the police, she sees the illicit substances all over the room and realizes she might get accused of using again. After she returns to her apartment, the woman drinks an entire bottle of water to calm herself down. Later in bed, the singer hears a squelching noise, and as she scans the room, she sees Lewis with his disfigured face standing by the foot of her bed. However, when she turns the light on, he disappears. The next day, Elizabeth tells her daughter to consider patching things up with her estranged best friend, Gemma. Moments later, Darius, the music executive funding the comeback tour, enters the dressing room and asks Skye if she'd like to be a presenter at a fundraising dinner tomorrow night, and she says yes. That afternoon, the worried woman Googles if the authorities can trace her DNA from the bodily fluids she left at the crime scene. She contemplates texting Gemma but ultimately decides against it. Then, the singer receives a message from an unknown number asking if she was at Lewis's apartment last night. Seconds later, the pop star hears the squelching noise again, and when she looks in the mirror, she sees the deceased man standing behind her. However, whenever she turns around to check, he isn't there. Suddenly, the entity pulls both sides of the woman's mouth, forcing her to smile. The terrified singer screams, but after scanning the room, she sees that there's no one there. Moments later, Skye shows Elizabeth how visible her scar is through the outfit, and she says she won't wear it for the concert. During a meet and greet, Alfredo, an eager fan with red marks on his skin, upsets the pop star with his unsettling remarks, prompting security to drag him away. Then, the woman meets the next fan, a girl with a creepy smile and unblinking eyes who doesn't respond to any of her questions. As the child walks away, she continues staring at the singer. Later that day, Skye rereads the message from the unknown number and pulls out a chunk of hair. Eventually, the pop star leaves Gemma a voicemail message asking her to call back. Almost immediately, the friend calls back and says she'll be at the singer's apartment in 45 minutes. Minutes later, while the woman practices a new song on the piano, she hears glass breaking and finds water bottle shards on the kitchen floor, so Skye grabs a broom from the closet. But when she returns to the kitchen, she sees a shirt she signed for Alfredo on the floor. As she investigates, the pop star finds more of the man's discarded garments, and at the end of the hallway, she spots the clothless fan staring at her from the shadows. Suddenly, Alfredo chases after her, so the singer runs for the front door. To her surprise, she finds Gemma waiting on the other side of the door, and when she looks around the room, the glass shards and the fan's clothes are no longer there. Relieved, the woman hugs her friend and explains that she thinks she might have had a frightening lucid dream last night. After she finishes off a water bottle, Gemma asks if she is thirsty, so the pop star shares that her therapist suggested drinking an entire glass of water whenever she feels the urge to use substances or drink alcohol. Moments later, Skye apologizes to her friend for their falling out and confides what happened with Lewis last night. When she wonders if she should call the police, Gemma says she can't risk derailing her career by admitting that she was at a dealer's apartment. To keep the singer company, the friend offers to spend the night at the apartment. Later that night, the pop star has a nightmare where she relives waking up in the wrecked vehicle, seeing the bones sticking out of her leg, and looking over at Paul's lifeless body in the driver's seat. As the woman lays awake in bed, she pours her heart out to Gemma. However, the friend says she deserves everything that happened to her because she's a horrible person. Confused, Skye looks to turn at her pal, but she's taken aback by the unnerving smile on Gemma's face. Suddenly, headlights glow from the friend's eyes, along with the sound of a loud car horn. Spooked, the singer falls off the bed, but when she gets up, she realizes that it's already morning. Meanwhile, the perplexed Gemma wonders why she seems on edge and says she's been up for hours. In the kitchen, the pop star asks her friend to join her on tour, but the woman says she'll think about it. Eventually, Skye arrives late to rehearsal, so she apologizes profusely to Darius. While practicing on stage, the singer envisions Paul's smiling face and she falls to the floor due to an apparent leg injury. However, when Anton turns the lights on, she sees that her leg is perfectly fine. Furious, the pop star asks the dancers which one of them knocked her over, so the choreographer calmly explains that he didn't see anyone out of place during the routine. Embarrassed, the woman leaves the stage and she walks past Joshua grinning maliciously. In the dressing room, Skye sees that someone trashed the space, so she compulsively rips off a chunk of her hair. Enraged, the singer confronts the assistant, believing he was responsible. To calm her daughter down, Elizabeth takes her into the room and says Joshua was with her the entire entire day. Then, the mother asks if she is using illicit substances again, so Skye swears she isn't and even suggests getting tested to prove it. The pop star thinks the tour was a mistake because she might not be ready yet, so the manager promises to give her a few days between concert dates to decompress. When Elizabeth brings up Darius's fundraising event, the singer says she's not in the right headspace to speak in front of a crowd, but her mother reminds her that she made a promise to be there. Before taking the stage at the charity dinner, the woman receives another message from the unknown number stating that they know who she is. While giving the speech, the teleprompter stalls, so the erratic pop star goes on a rant about how achieving success in the music industry didn't fix any of her problems and she'd gladly trade all of it for a single moment of genuine happiness. After seeing the shocked faces in the crowd, Skye collects herself and finishes reading the rest of the speech from the teleprompter. Suddenly, the horrified woman watches the smiling Paul approach the stage, and she lashes out screaming that he's dead. Forcing herself to accept that he isn't real, the singer shuts her eyes. However, seconds after opening them, the boyfriend grabs her neck, causing the pop star to stumble backward, accidentally pushing an elderly guest off the stage. Following the chaotic event, Skye texts Gemma for emotional support, but the friend hasn't answered all day. Then, she receives another message from the unknown number stating that she's in danger and they need to meet as soon as possible. When the singer asks who the person is, they respond by acknowledging that she isn't imagining things and that everything she's seen is real. To prove their claim, the stranger sends the pop star a video Lewis recorded 4 days ago. In the clip, the man walks around the apartment and mentions how he keeps seeing people staring and smiling at him. Suddenly, the deceased dealer appears right next to Skye, and she falls to the floor in fright. Desperate for answers, the woman agrees to meet in a bar. Soon, she speaks to Morris, an ER nurse who says he tried to warn Lewis about the situation. However, when he finally tracked the man down, he was already dead in his apartment and the pop star was the last person he texted. The nurse explains that Lewis didn't take his own life because he was infected, possessed, and murdered by a metaphysical being. Morris admits he doesn't know what the entity is, but he knows that it disguises itself to look like smiling people and only those infected can see it. The man adds that it's like a parasite that affects the host through their mind, and it drives them insane in less than a week by feeding off their trauma. Once the being finishes feeding, it forces the host to off themselves in front of a witness, and then the witness becomes the new host. Skye wonders how the man knows all this, so the nurse reveals that his brother was a host and he's made a list of everyone who's been infected since. Morris confides that he wishes he'd listened to his brother's cry for help because the man eventually tore his jaw off with a crowbar. The nurse says that the chain stops when a host dies in some other way outside of the being's control, implying that the singer needs to die before the entity kills her. The man suggests safely stopping the woman's heart, depriving the being of a living host, and he promises to resuscitate her. Skye thinks what he's proposing is crazy, but Morris says they need to get rid of it tonight because it's already been feeding on her for 3 days, and soon she won't realize the ways it's manipulating her. Suddenly, the bar patrons recognize the pop star, prompting her to leave the establishment. In the apartment, the paranoid singer grabs a suitcase to pack her belongings before fleeing the city. However, the woman tweaks her back after bending down to pick up her toothbrush. When she drops the contents of a medicine canister on the floor, the overwhelmed pop star screams and pulls out a chunk of her hair. Moments later, the entity torments Skye in the form of her backup dancers. The singer tries to run away, but the smiling instigators block the exits while slowly inching closer. Eventually, they slam the woman's head on the piano, rip off her hair, and one of them shoves his arm down her throat. 1 year ago, the intoxicated couple had a heated argument inside the car, and when Paul mocked Skye, she grabbed the wheel, revealing that she caused the fatal crash. In the present, the pop star wakes up in a wellness clinic, and Elizabeth says she has a minor concussion after fainting and hitting her head last night. Then, the mother instructs Joshua to inform the doctor that the singer's awake. Despite the daughter's distressed state, Elizabeth thinks 1 day's rest is enough before the tour starts tomorrow. Skye tries to explain that she can't do it, so the manager sternly reminds her that if she cancels another tour, the record label's gonna sue them for millions and her career is over. Then, the singer says all the mother thinks about is business and that she's never cared about her daughter's well-being. Exasperated, Elizabeth counters that she sacrificed years of her life and her career to support Skye and adds that the pop star is too selfish to see it. In tears, the singer wishes her mother could feel what it's like having to live inside her head. Suddenly, the entity unveils that it's been pretending to be Elizabeth this whole time, menacingly stating that it's tasted what's inside the pop star's head. Seconds later, the being smashes a mirror and stabs her neck and face with a shard. However, when Skye runs toward the door, she realizes that she's holding the piece of glass and that she's covered in blood, revealing that she killed her mother while under the entity's control. Horrified by what she'd done, the singer wipes her face and hands with a sheet and puts on a large hoodie. Before leaving the room, the woman covers Elizabeth's body with a blanket. In the lobby, Joshua sees the blood on her hospital gown and thinks she's injured. When the staff comes over to help, Skye steals a gun from a security guard and flees the wellness clinic. Outside, the unhinged pop star runs into Gemma and they forcibly take Elizabeth's private vehicle to escape. When the friend asks where they're headed, the singer says they need to go to Staten Island to meet up with Morris. Moments later, Skye answers a call from the real Gemma, who apologizes for taking so long before responding to her voicemail message. After confirming that the friend hasn't been to her apartment in over a year, the pop star realizes the entity's been impersonating Gemma for days. The being tells the singer that everybody hates her, so she closes her eyes and convinces herself that she's in control of her mind. Suddenly, Skye returns to reality and she's sitting behind the wheel of the car. Eventually, the woman arrives at an abandoned Pizza Hut where Morris explains that it's the only place he could lease that has a large freezer. The man says they need to lower her body temperature before medically stopping her heart so she doesn't incur permanent brain damage once resuscitated. In the freezer, the singer lies down on the table and the nurse explains that once she's cold enough, he'll inject the substance to slow down her heart until it stops. Then, he'll start a timer for 8 minutes, after which he'll administer a dose of adrenaline and perform CPR. When Morris steps out for a moment, the entity attacks in the form of Skye after surviving the car crash a year ago. The being pins the pop star against the wall and says it likes to wear her skin. The entity tries to force the woman's mouth open, but she bites off its thumbs and injects the syringe into her neck, hoping it'll stop her heart quickly. When she doesn't lose consciousness, the being mocks the singer and reveals that none of this is real. After the creature locks her in a closet, the pop star suddenly finds herself on stage for her tour's opening night at Madison Square Garden. In the crowd, she spots her mother cheering her on, revealing that the last few days were a hallucination. At the end of the stage, the woman sees the entity looking exactly like her but grinning maliciously. Then, the being tears the scar on its stomach open, unveiling its true form. A terrifying, slender, skinless creature with bulging eyes. Helpless and defeated, Skye falls to her knees, and the monster forces her mouth open with its massive hands. Meanwhile, all the audience sees is the pop star choking, eliciting concerned murmurs from the crowd. Seconds later, the singer rises to her feet, and when she turns toward the fans, her face is permanently frozen in a creepy smile. Suddenly, the possessed pop star violently impales herself with a microphone, and the screams of the horrified crowd fill the arena.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.